And the one though that had the post office here, they sent him to Etheridge, and that's why up where I live, they Route 3 Etheridge, and it circled it with the buggy all the way around and down Factory Creek and turned back up Ray Branch. Commodore Ross. Does that mean anything to anybody? Commodore Ross was now that takes care of the bank and what else did you want to? Well, the funeral home.
Well, who was Commodore Ross? That's what I am with the postman. It was a mail carrier
When he handles bakers.
for Etheridge.
Yeah.
I guess after it left.
Yes, baker,
Yeah, that's right.
yes, Commodore.
But if you go to these cemeteries around here, I think over, you know where my cemetery is, the Hannah Yoakley. But now where was your daddy and mother and granddaddy?
Well, see, now, mother and daddy, they're buried, but in Maplewood, but now you're talking about my great-great-grandparents.
He's buried in my field down
That's
there.
right. Isaac.
Isaac.
He's the head of all of them.
And he's your great granddaddy?
Great-great.
Great, well, did you know that same man is my great grandmama's great granddaddy? The man buried in my field was my great grandmama's great granddaddy. But these Morrises, they just live a long time, I guess.
Well, I don't know about that, but they're just good people.
Good people. That's
Where is that field, did you say?
you know where the grave inmate field.
Little Dry Creek, about half a
Little,
mile.
little dry creek.
Okay, a
Over
little
there
dry
on a
creek.
little mound by itself.
Okay.
So peaceful. That's his grave. And we believe that, well, we just think there might have been a house there. That's where he's buried, but his wife is buried up on, from Marshtown. You know where the church is?
Yeah.
That cemetery. That's where his wife is
Yeah, I
buried.
know.
And he's buried down here by himself.
But now, who was his wife? Was she
The funeral home, what happened with the funeral
Suzanne
home?
Tackett, I believe.
Yeah,
Suzanne.
yes, Suzanne.
The funeral home, they were talking about the undertaker. Tell them where the undertaker was.
It's exactly where that, Funny Ross, do you remember, well, you don't, but the concrete block building with doors all the way across, over there next to the bank, right next to the bank.
Well, Mark, what did they do? Did they just do the arrangements and then did they actually have visitations down there and all that, or how did it work?
All I know is what people told me, but so many told me C.E. Owen should be here. He knows because it was his great granddaddy. But Owen, that was his funeral home, and he run a whole whatever. He did the well, it's embalmed them, but he brought the bodies there, and then he had a hearse full of horses. And then, if you didn't have a preacher, he would preach the funeral. It was a one-shot deal.
Mark, he was also, and this was common practice with the funeral homes back then, that the person that ran the funeral home usually was also a furniture maker. And they made, most of them made their own coffins that they used in the shops, but he was a carpenter also.
At the house.
I don't know, they might have been Jew and buried them before they smelled. I don't know.
There's a tale about that my mother used to tell, since you mentioned that. They dug up somebody one time to check or something. And this person had hair all in their hands, where they had pulled the hair out. And they said that they think back then that they were dead, but they weren't, and they buried them alive. And that they had, yeah, Mark, did you hear that? About that? And
You had to make sure
they
you
had
got
hair
it.
all in their hands where they,
Oh, my goodness.
well, just lay there is all they could do, is pull the hair out. That's what they
C.E.
say.
Owens should be here
He was
because
invited.
he knows.
That's some of his relatives back there,
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, she is. She is. She sees
Mark,
Daddy.
you remember that time I came down here and you and C.E. showed me around all these places?
Yes.
And his great-granddaddy and my great-granddaddy were brothers.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Well, you know about the undertaker business.
Yeah, I
didn't you?
heard, about it, but, and William, which was C.E.'s great-granddaddy, lived in a house there where Wallace Lumber Company is now.
That's was the one that had the,
The Undertaker.
that was his
place.
own. And it went on over to where the gymnasium, you know, we finally got a gymnasium, but that land belonged to Mr. Owen. And finally, the county bought it from him and got to put a gymnasium. It used to be I know when you went, you only had one road going up to the schoolhouse. You had to turn around and come back like you went in. I've told you that before, haven't I?
You remember that, Christine, I remember that.
The road didn't make a circle.
Didn't you tell us before that he kept the hearse parked out there in the building out beside the house at Tim's?
You know, I said, is it still there? You tore it down.
It's been a long time, I had to get rid of it.
Huh?
I kept it till just a few years ago, but it had that, you told me one time, it had that side shed on there, you know, and that's
Yeah.
where they kept the hearse parked. The rafters were made out of poles.
Yeah.
Mark, there was a story I heard you tell about a lady who was run over and killed up here on the curb just beyond Tim's place as you go out of town there.
The black woman.
Yes, could you tell that story? Would you tell that story again?
Well, that was Moot's wife. I don't know who Moot's wife. Did you ever know who Moot was? The black man lived down there in Mr. Sam Collins. And he had a pony buggy and a pony. And somebody came, I'm not gonna tell you who it was, and hit
They're gone. Tell us who it was.
Earl White. You kenned Earl White?
No, I don't know him.
But what they tell you that hit the buggy and knocked the woman clear out of the buggy and up in the field there. And everybody was gathering around, and Earl White had a milk truck hauling canned milk, and it was about dark. You know, when you get to where at a certain time you can't see with lights or without lights. And he hit that buggy and knocked her out. And somebody got word to Moot that his wife had been run over, and he got on a mule and came running up there loping. And when he got there, he said, "Whoever run over my wife and killed her gonna pay me $40." That's what you wanted to hear.
Well, we promised folks that we would be here for about an hour and a half today, and we have some pictures that somebody else will have to explain where they came from, and I'll explain where the ones at the end came from. But I wanted to make sure before we turn this off, Dean, anything that we need on this tape that you remember, something really that we really have to have for posterity.
I don't know where this is just picking up on what we were talking about before, but I remember the country music stars, they called them singers back then. But I remember the Chuck Wagon Gang, Zeke Clements, and a guy remember Paul Howard, and then Lester Flatt. Remember, the way I remember Lester Flatt was, he was advertising Moth and White Flower back then when it started. But the kids sold tickets. You'd go door to door and sell tickets. Seemed like the class, they were poor and you got a nickel out of that. But I remember those type programs. And also the cakewalks was a big fundraiser too. And I would have to mention this, my first grade teacher, Miss Sue Daly. She was my first and second grade teacher. Really a nice lady. I remember her kind of so plain and this kind of thing. But I remember she married Coach Clark while they were teaching her. And that really got my attention. I thought, I can't believe she would marry Coach Clark.
I wondered if y'all remember John Lawrence playing.
Yeah.
What year was that? Didn't he?
He finished in about 49. He was 2 years ahead of us, yeah.
Well, he got a scholarship to UT, but ended up going to the University of Wyoming to play football.
And also Ralph Petty went to Wyoming. And Ralph had an accident.
They went together. They went out there at the same time.
Yeah. Ralph had an accident on the day he graduated, got hit by a train and lost his life.
I've got one thing that I'd like to tell. It's a highlight in my life, and I hope this don't sound too personal. But back when we had communities, had the home demonstration clubs, we met up at Ruth and Emmett's house, and it was time to have a beauty contest at the Giles County Fair. Well, it got down to me and Mark Duncan. Mark didn't want it and I didn't want it, the person to participate in the beauty contest. So we drew straws, and naturally I lost. Went down there and Miss Parsons made me a big red bow to put on my knee. Jane made me a black skirt with a big split up the side. I don't know where I got the high heel shoes, but I had an umbrella, and I was all decorated upstairs. So, the night of the show, they had a tent set up behind the stage to dress or undress, and there was this little petite lady walking around there with her purse in her arm, and I thought it was a real woman. But I found out later it was Mr. Bill Watson, that Watson Emerson Harding. But anyway, we went out. Mark, how many was it? 8 or 10 of us, wasn't it?
I don't know.
We was out on the stage. That stage had cracks in the boards. Well, it got down to me and somebody else, and for some reason, I was selected. Mr. Goodman was the MC. Well, when my name was called, I went over. I was going to hug his neck, you know. Well, he jumped off the stage and took off. I got my shoe heel hung in one of them cracks. And then they told us, the winner, you can go up here to tent so-and-so and get you a hamburger. So that ended my beauty contest. I was appointed one more time. And I was competing against Mr. Rudolph Rose. And Rudolph's wife, you know, was a beautician. And she fixed some balloons and put CoverGirl on and all this kind of stuff. Needless to say, Rudolph was the winner. He looked like something from Broadway. Well, after the decision was made, he and I were walking over to get our hamburger. And I said, Rudolph, what happened to your chest? He said, somebody stuck a pin in my lung.
Well, what we'll do is let's take a break. Everybody grab a, okay.
I won't say
One more thing. We got you.
Oh, we didn't say too much about the war. The only thing I remember about the war was this little sign that you was on the front of your car, it said, is this trip really necessary? You know, to go to town or whatever. But we didn't say too much about the boar, but you can imagine what it means to us, the gold star. So,
That's,
John Howard Carter.
That was Margaret's brother, too.
And
There was another card.
there were two boys that was in high school with me and left while they were still in school and volunteered. And one went to the Navy, the other one went to the Marine, and both of them in my class was killed.
Who was it, Mark?
Donovan? Boyd Donovan's brother?
No, he wasn't in my, Charles Burchell, and M.H. Carter.
Well, now, there was a Donovan, Mr. Ben Donovan.
Yeah, but he wasn't in my,
He wasn't your class.
I never did really know him. But he was Boyd and them, and Mr. Ben's son.
Yeah.
But his name was Ben what? Two names.
Ben Tom.
Ben Tom. Ben Tom. He was older than I am, but it's really something, and I really want to believe that there was another one in my class that was killed in service.
Well, you were talking about volunteering. I grew up the volunteer. I grew up the volunteer.
He volunteered.
Before the war, because before the war was declared, because he knew he was at the age and he didn't have any reason not to go. He wanted in the Air Force.
What was
We
he?
didn't have a choice either.
You know,
No,
we called him Jim Reeves. James Campbell.
James Campbell.
And my second cousin. Well, he wasn't, but he was drafted the year before Pearl Harbor. He was in a year before, and he stayed until, and he went through the Battle of the Bulge. And Jim then got a job later on. People tried to help Jim, but he would get so mad and throw fits. But he told me that they sent him over to direct the traffic over on the interstate when they'd have a wreck or something. And he said he'd rather go through the Battle of the Bulge again than to direct traffic on the interstate.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. Okay, David is going to explain to us what the pictures are, and I've got them on this big screen. I'll just let it run up here, and Ms. Donovan is going to come over here and be able to explain the pictures. And then, yes, you are. You can have a chair. And,
This is a surprise.
and at the end of it, I've put some other pictures that are from my granny and my mama and my old school books, or picture books, as examples of what everybody has in their picture books that we need to get scans of. Pictures made at Campbellsville School, pictures made at community events, because people aren't going to know who they are. I don't know who half the people are in mine. So anyway, that's what this is going to be about. Please have coffee, punch, cookies. Yes, ma'am.
I had a thing, sorry, I thought you had a thing. I would like, before everybody leaves, if everybody's getting ready to leave, I like to hear stories of like what you remember, because I've heard so many stories about your family, it feels like I just know them. And Mr. Walls and everybody, I like to, for you to tell like your childhood and, you know, not so much, I want to know your home life and what you did at home and that kind of thing. And everybody, it's like that instead of, and I mean, love this today, but I want to know that too. So I wonder if y'all come back and let us hear those kind of detailed stories about what you remember about life at home and your relatives and those kind of things. Would you do that?
Is that today?
No, I mean, that's just, we probably won't have time today, but can you come back and do that? Would y'all be willing to do that? Okay, everybody that's out of town, see if we get more.
Can I ask two questions? And somebody may know, I know the group, but my mother graduated here in 1929 with both mower. I've never seen a picture of her, a school picture, and like that. She died when I was 17, she was a registered nurse, but, and it may have been a picture somebody made back through those years, but they probably don't know who they are. But if anybody happens to have an old picture that she would have been in, she was class of 29, she graduated up here. I sure will have a copy of it, it's an old picture. But also, my Aunt Rebecca, her sister, graduated in 39, and her son gave me a little charm bracelet from Campbellsville, CHS. I assume it was something that the seniors had. I have no way of knowing if we found out. I never did do it. But that was in a class, Goldie, Michael, Heidi, and some of them were in. But my mother was in 29. But if anybody ever happens to come across a picture of that, from 8, of that, they have to have names on it. My mother, both of them was in it, I sure love it.
She graduated what year did she, your mother?
Pardon?
29.
Grandmother or your mother?
My mother graduated.
What year did she graduate?
29.
She was in with Goldie and they.
No, they went 39. My mother.
Oh, that's
sister.
29.
Yeah, so Goldman went 39. But, the charm bracelet was my aunt's in 39, but my mother was in 29. I think, Eddie Brown Foster was in that class, and, she was Florida.
All right, David, tell us what the pictures are about.
Okay, I want to say a word about the pictures. Everybody, some of these folks were coaxed to be here to see the pictures. That we come about a whole group of pictures